Hi, how you going? It's Kate French here, clinical psychologist, coach and mentor, and welcome to 2022 and this January new year. So just wanting to come to you really quickly this afternoon just to share a little bit about what I've been up to. I've been having a bit of a break over the Christmas and summer period, but I've really been getting back into things this week. So just earlier today, All the Gems group, my education subscription program that we meet up once a month, we ran a session on parenting. So it was modern parenting for neurodivergent children and teens, and I chatted for about an hour and a half, I think it was. Always think it's going to take about an hour, always do a little bit more, and went through a number of different thoughts and approaches about what we understand about what's good parenting and how families, when they may get into some difficulty with parenting, how we sometimes head into what I call the medical model and the behavioural kind of model of understanding children's behavioural difficulties. It's the most common kind of approach, I think, that exists in our society in Australia, but certainly even, around the world, definitely. And so just talked a little bit about those kinds of approaches, about how embedded they are in terms of how they understand behaviour, and about how we can do better, about how current neuroscience is teaching us to really look underneath kids' behaviour and ask different kinds of questions. Sort of talk you through having some thoughts about what are your own parenting goals, how are you influenced with your parenting, what's your parenting template like, and then I took you through a bit more depth about emotion coaching, because I'm really familiar with emotion coaching, and I'm really familiar with doing emotion coaching with parents of neurodivergent kids and teens. So I've been doing that for the last few years sort of exclusively, in terms of that's the parent group that I'm working with. And whilst emotion coaching hasn't been designed for this group, it works really well in lots of regards. And then I introduced people who, if they're not familiar, about Polyvagal Theory and how this is really informing us better about kids' systems, sensory systems, how they experience and detect threat, and how that can really present, I suppose, as behaviour that sometimes is confounding or confusing for parents, not just parents, but for health professionals and schools and other systems as well, and how this theory, when it is embedded in a broader understanding of kids and behaviour, can be very, very, very helpful. So I talked a bit about Mona Delahooke and her work and her books and her approaches, and also talked about some other kinds of approaches that are really using this kind of most current research to understand children's behaviour, and then how it kind of all feeds back into neurodivergent kids and their needs, and how perhaps we as parents and parents of neurodivergent kids, whether they know it or whether they don't know it, can use this information to kind of inform our parenting better, and not just inform our parenting better, inform those who are supporting our kids as well. So I touched on that, because the behavioural approach of understanding kids' behaviour is kind of a dominant theme, not just in the medical model, but also within our education system as well. A lot of the time, the reward punishment kind of idea about shaping kids' behaviour is sort of what families get sort of taught, and it's also what we get lumped with in terms of when we go and seek specific help. So we sort of talked about some of those challenges, but also the exciting changes that are on the horizon. So that was really fun to do that. And as I said if you're part of All the Gems, I called this part one to understanding sort of parenting, because it's such a huge topic, and already I've got other approaches that I want to talk about more, which will be in part two later on this year. So collaborative practices, solutions, the work by Dr. Green, I know has been well received by lots of families who are looking for specific parenting help when they're parenting neurodivergent kids and teens. So his work I'm familiar with, and I'll talk a bit about that approach and how that again differs from maybe not traditional parenting approaches, but how it adds to what we know is quite good parenting. So authoritative type styles of parenting, and even motion coaching styles of parenting, and how this is similar to and how it is a little bit different to as well. And also I'll help unpack with you Mona Delahooke's new book, which lands in March, and that is called, I think it's called Brain Body Parenting. So she's written a number of texts, but this one's going to be more specific about applying it for parents. So I thought that might be useful to unpack with you further in that All the Gems program. So yeah, I thought parenting was a really good topic to do for a first one for 2022. Here in Australia, we're in school holidays, so parents get a lot of time with their kids if they're home like I am, looking after them and engaging with them and having a break and over the school holidays. And even for families around in the UK and other places, they normally get a bit of a break around this festive kind of time. So it's certainly when we also at the beginnings of years make kind of reflections on how we've been doing things, how we want to continue to keep doing things, and how we can keep improving. I think for me, parenting is just always just that journey. I've got a 14-year-old and I've got a 9-year-old, and I learned about parenting before I was a parent, so my parenting is always being informed by what I'm reading, what I'm listening, what I'm experiencing, and how I can kind of keep integrating that and keep asking that question: what do I want for my kids? What do I want for me as a parent? What do I want it to kind of look like? And certainly, how can I support other parents to be doing that as well? What are the challenges that they're having? What kind of informs their parenting approach and parenting style, and how is that helping them or maybe hindering them in terms of having a family life and having a parenting relationship that they just love, and I really, want families to be going, I love being with my kids, I love engaging with them, I love the human beings that they're becoming, I love how they're seeing the world, so I really want that for families. And I know it's not always going to be like that, and it's not about saying we need to be perfect, or that we can't have other interests outside our parenting, because of course we can, but certainly it's about feeling content in the progress that we're making, and feeling like we are making progress in the right direction. So that's why I decided to talk and do a deep dive earlier in that program. So yeah, and just again, if that's something that's kind of like you're wondering a bit more about, I'll put up some of those names if you're not familiar with them already, but there's some of the professionals that are informing my understanding of approaches and what's helpful with kids and behaviour and things. And it's such a huge part of what we do as human beings, raising other human beings. And yes, there's parenting advice and there's parenting tips, but I suppose for me, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's like the day-to-day like interactions, and they're the what you do in those every single moments. But I always kind of think that's like a zoomed in approach. But for me, I know that I'm informed, whether consciously or unconsciously, that zoom out approach, which is what's guiding me, what beliefs are guiding me, what values are guiding me. And I know those are those things that are deeply embedded in my knowledge, are what come through in those moments, and then the other thing is when we're stressed, I know what comes through when I'm stressed. My parenting is not as good when I'm stressed versus when I'm calm. So thinking about that too, like what comes up for you when you're stressed versus what comes up for you when you're feeling calm and parenting feels maybe easy, or your engagement with your kids feels kind of easy. Because I think what comes up when we're stressed, sometimes it's that unconscious stuff that gets triggered, or unconscious beliefs kind of come to the fore when we're in that stressed mode. And sometimes it's just about acknowledging that we need to have skills when we're stressed. It's not that we're a terrible parent. It's like when we're in that mode, we need to take some time back and we need to regulate ourselves and things like that. So that's super, super important. And I don't think gets talked about enough, in terms of how do parents find those pockets of pause before they react to kids, and who coaches us how to do that, So yeah, I think a lot of that is very, very important, and I hope that over the holidays you've had some great moments and great time. Maybe you've even had some time to reflect on what you want for your family and for your future. I know I put together a bit of a guide which might help with that. Just before Christmas I put out, so if you're on my mailing list you would have got an email about that. If not, just let me know. I'll put a link to it here and you can download it. So it was just a bit of a guide to get some of those questions going for you, in terms of going, what am I after? What are my goals for 2022? It's already here, a week in already. And you know, where does parenting sit in that? And I know that if you've got children, they're usually a big part of our thinking, and if it's not going well, then it's a big drain on our energy, and it's a big worry if our kids aren't, you know, not feeling like we're supporting them, or they're not feeling nurtured and things like that. So yeah, having some time to reflect on some of our big dreams, some of our wishes, and thinking about how we can take steps to move towards that. So thank you for being watching live with me. I wish you a really cool Friday afternoon, and I will be back next Friday for our next Friday live. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.